Good day, good people of the snow. This is Ben from the Sawtooth Avalanche Center with your weekend update. As a general reminder, these weekend updates are not intended to replace the forecasts. They're intended to help you set the forecast in a frame so you understand what we're talking about. Be sure to check the forecast before you head out every morning. It's posted by 7 a.m. each day. Well, it has been quite a week in our neck of the woods. Now, here we are looking back at danger over the last 7 days, with the top of that being the 17th and the bottom being last Saturday. You can see that we had several periods of extreme danger during this period, as well as a lot of high danger. We saw two separate natural avalanche cycles, one beginning around the 10th and the 11th of March, and another with a big storm on the 14th and the 15th of March. During those storms, we went to extreme danger and we saw widespread avalanches in almost all of our forecast area. Our observations from the Banner Summit area are limited, but I suspect you can find some pretty big avalanches up there as well. As far as storm totals, here we are looking roughly at a SWE, so that's snow water equivalent, the amount of water that'd be in the snow if you melted it. You can see most of our area picked up between 3 and 5 inches of snow water equivalent, with 5 to 6 inches or more falling in the Sawtooths and the Western Smokies. Roughly equate that, about an inch of SWE is maybe 10 inches of snow if it's relatively dense, about a foot on an average, maybe 8% density. So we're seeing here between 3 to 5 feet of new snow that fell across our area and has settled into a meaty slab. What happened because of that? Well, widespread avalanches. We saw avalanches of all varieties, from the lowest of elevations all the way up to our high peaks. Here we are just a little ways south of Bellevue, looking at a large natural avalanche. Appears to have released near the rain line, gouged down throughout the entire snowpack, and deposited a significant pile of wet debris at the base of the slope. Moving up into the Alpine, here we are sitting between 9,500 feet and 10,500 feet on northwest to west aspects. You can see widespread wind effect in here, as well as a lot of crowns, some of which are more than 1,000 feet wide. Pretty darn impressive. Those big avalanches make big debris piles. Here we are looking into the debris below the southwest bowl of Galena Peak. This avalanche ran all the way to the end of its historic track, where the two drainages come together, if you're familiar with that piece of terrain. That's a couple miles nearly from where the avalanche started. So that's a pretty impressive avalanche. But it wasn't just these big alpine avalanches that we're seeing. We also saw pretty widespread activity in a lot of the popular ski terrain and a lot of the popular riding terrain around Galena Summit and the mountains above Smiley Creek. This avalanche pictured here is on the west aspect of Mushroom Ridge, right near Galena Summit there. And you can see some pretty impressive slides. It's a couple foot deep crown, and they're hundreds of feet wide. These deposited big, ugly debris piles at the bottom of the slope. Here we are on the pass still. The pass is on the right side of this photo, and you can see this avalanche that stretches nearly a half-mile wide on this slide path that's right above the road. This slide path buried the road with 20 feet of debris in places and required some pretty significant effort from our friends over at the transportation department, but fortunately they were up for the task. Here you can see a big rotary plow throwing snow 40 or 50 feet up in the air, clearing it out of that, clearing that avalanche debris out to get the road opened for everybody. Of course, avalanches weren't just happening in the mountains, they were happening in the valleys as well. Here we are looking at a house that was hit by an avalanche on the backside of Dollar Mountain. The debris on this stacked up against the side of this house is probably 20 feet deep in places, maybe a bit more. This did some structural damage to the house, and it absolutely buried the driveway, which should be visible in this photo. Pretty impressive and pretty spooky. We did see a lot of avalanche activity, and that obviously gets us excited here at the Avalanche Center. But unfortunately, this week also involved our first fatality of the season. This avalanche pictured here failed in the Stanley Lake Creek drainage in the Sawtooth Mountains. It was triggered When a rider was on the slope, the rider was caught and carried, was fully buried by the avalanche, and unfortunately succumbed to their injuries. Important thing to know about this avalanche, this is not a huge slope. This is not a huge piece of terrain. But because we have these persistent weak layers in our snowpack and they're buried beneath these really meaty slabs, avalanches like this are possible, even in this terrain that is maybe a little bit innocuous looking when you first take a peek at it. That's something really worth keeping in mind as we head into the weekend. As far as what we're going to get for weather, it's going to be relatively mild, and we're going to get a little bit of sun. Saturday, we'll see partly cloudy skies, kind of mix of sun and clouds in both Ketchum and Stanley. Highs down here in the valleys are going to be in the mid to upper 30s. Highs in the mountains should be in the mid to upper 20s, maybe approaching 30 degrees in some places. Get another cold night on Saturday night, and then a bit warmer of a day on Sunday, a milder night Sunday night with a chance for some light snow coming into Monday. Accumulations look like there'll only be a couple inches at this point, not likely to significantly change the avalanche hazard. So your main avalanche problem for the week is this persistent slab problem. This is the main problem in every single one of our forecast zones. And this problem is describing the weak snow that we developed in late January and early February. We started burying in the middle of February, and that now has anywhere from a 2 to 5 or 6 foot thick slab of snow sitting on top of it. That's a really dense slab of snow. It's, in a lot of places, it's actually keeping us above this weak layer. It's making it a little bit harder to trigger avalanches on that weak layer, but because that slab is so dense and that weak layer is so well developed, any avalanche that you trigger, it's going to be large, it's going to be destructive, and a lot of those are just going to be unsurvivable. In addition to the persistent slab problems, you can expect to see kind of your typical flavor of spring problems out there. We'll see some small wind slabs in places, potential for some wet snow avalanches during the heat of the day, particularly in the afternoon on south and southwest and west facing slopes. And remember that there are absolutely gigantic cornices that are yawning over many of these alpine bowls that we like to play in. These can fail naturally at any time. That's more likely during the heat of the day, and they can also be triggered by a human. Going down the slope with one of those is a bad story and can have some pretty negative consequences. So where do we go from here? Well, that's the big question. We're seeing avalanche danger gradually decrease, but we just came off of a week with multiple periods of extreme hazard, with multiple periods of avalanche warnings, with a very tragic avalanche fatality, and truly historic avalanche cycles. You should take all that information, put it in your brain, and come out with the idea that maybe choosing some more conservative terrain for the weekend is probably going to be the appropriate thing to do. You're not likely to be seeing obvious signs of instability when you're traveling in the mountains. You may not be getting cracking and collapsing that are usually associated with layers of weak snow. You may just be going out and walking along, and the snowpack feels good in the upper couple feet, and then the first sign of instability is triggering a large, deadly, very destructive avalanche. So bear that in mind when you're traveling in the mountains. Use that to temper your ambitions a little bit. Today and tomorrow probably are not the days to be going on big rides, linking up a bunch of drainages, and aren't the days to be going for those big peaks and skiing the lines that we've been eyeing all season. That time will come, but it's not here yet. Thanks for listening. I appreciate it. I hope you check the forecast before you go out. Again, it's published by 7 a.m. every day. We have mountain weather forecasts that go up between about 5 and 5:30 a.m. every day as well for you. Let us know what you're seeing out there. Be safe. Enjoy all this beautiful snow we've got, but bear in mind that we've got some pretty ugly weak layers in the snowpack, and they still need some time to heal before we're willing to step out in the big terrain. Thanks for listening. Have a great weekend.